Hey, welcome to the Empowered and Free podcast. My name is Erin Kimbrell, and I'm a counselor, certified life coach, breathwork coach, and small town mom of two. I know firsthand what it feels like to live with high functioning anxiety. For most of my life, I had so much mental mess, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking, constant worrying, and never feeling good enough. On my decade-long journey to feeling better, I've learned how to take back my life from high-functioning anxiety and helped others to do the same through my coaching and breathwork programs. Now I want to share everything I know with you. This podcast will help you feel empowered over your high-functioning anxiety and free to finally live the life of your dreams. Now, grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and dive into the episode. I'm Erin Kimbrell, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast. Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Oh, it feels good to be behind the mic again. I know that is cheesy, but it really is how I feel. I have to admit, I've been a little bit slack with the podcast episodes. I promise you it is for all good reason. I'll tell you all about it in just a second, but in this moment, I'm very much living my work hard, play hard summer mentality. We've been kind of on like permanent vacation here, there, and everywhere, to the Florida Keys, to the lake, to the mountains, like anywhere we can go. We're just jet setting off. With that, I've also been working very hard. I have been hard at work creating some incredible new ways to help you feel less anxious. And I'm super excited for you to get them in your hands and start learning and feel less anxious immediately. It's going to be awesome. Okay. Today, I'm going to break down anxiety in a way that makes total sense to you. I know anxiety can be super overwhelming. Everything we need to know is at our fingertips, right? We can literally have access to anything we want in the world with a click of a button. All of the information we need is there. That's awesome. Like, what a cool thing. We don't have to dig out an encyclopedia. Who remembers those? And like look something up. Very cool that we live in this age, but also incredibly overwhelming. If you Google how to manage anxiety, which gag, please don't Google that. Don't get me started. You do not have to manage your anxiety. It is not one more task for you to manage. Like, you can actually heal it at the root so that it doesn't show up for you all the time. However, that's not the message that's put out there. Everybody's talking about managing anxiety. So if you Googled that, which maybe you have, maybe I had back in the day when I was really struggling. If you Google how to manage anxiety, you're going to be flooded with hundreds of thousands of websites and advice and solutions, and everything is just going to be in your face. And then all your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads are going to be targeted towards that message. It's just a lot. And if you're anything like me, that immediate sense of overwhelm makes me just completely shut down. It makes me avoid it all. I just close the browser and maybe I'll say, I'll try again tomorrow, or probably not, because it's going to be the same thing. You have just that overload of information, plus the confusion on who's right. Like, who do I listen to? What's actually going to work for me? Plus all of the anxiety, that intense anxiety that you feel. So when we add all that up, that's just a path to disaster. And that's probably the place that you're in. I know for sure that was the place that I was in before. And because of that, I just want to make things easier for you. I want to give you all the shortcuts that I never had. For me, I felt like I had to just figure it out by myself. I felt like somebody picked me up, dropped me in the middle of the woods alone without a compass and told me to figure it out, like find help, good luck. That's kind of what it felt like. You don't have to struggle like I did. If you've listened to my story in episode 1 of the podcast, you know that I tried everything imaginable for anxiety and nothing actually helped me enough. Maybe I got some temporary relief, but that anxiety flooded back in really quickly. And I know firsthand how defeating, how disappointing, and really frustrating that feels. So my friend, I don't want you to have to go through that. With everything I've learned, all my experience now as a counselor, as a certified coach, and especially as a recovering anxious overachiever, I want to make it simple for you, right? I want to teach you everything you need to know and also leave out all the fluff that you don't. I know that you know those simple tips like being mindful can help you feel less anxious. Of course it can. You can Google that, but that's not really the root of what we're talking about here. And you guys know I'm all about getting to the root. Because of that, I created Anxiety 101 to be the exact resource you need. And this, my friend, is your fast track to feeling less anxious. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Anxiety 101 is. And then we're going to come back. We're going to get into the episode. I'm going to tell you about anxiety in a way that makes total sense to you. I know firsthand it is super overwhelming trying to figure out what to do to actually feel less anxious. There is so much information out there at the tips of your fingers, but you don't know who to believe or what to actually listen to. Like, what is going to work for you? Plus, it's really hard to take any steps to feeling better when your anxiety is just suffocating, when it's always in your face and you're always feeling it. You wake up with your thoughts racing, you feel that heaviness in your chest, and you're just thinking immediately of all the things that you need to do. You're going about your day feeling like that 24/7, and you just want to catch a break. You're so tired of feeling anxious all the time. You just want to feel better, but you don't even know where to start. Everywhere you turn, somebody is offering a new fix for anxiety, but you're really frustrated with trying things that don't work for you and then feeling let down over and over again. What if it was actually simple to feel less anxious? What if you could learn the shortcuts and the secrets that would make your life a lot easier? And what if all you needed to feel less anxious was just a little inside info from a mental health professional and a former anxious achiever? You, my friend, are in luck. Anxiety 101 is your fast track to learning how to deal with anxiety. You can learn the ins and outs of anxiety without doing the months of research or spending years of trial and error. This is everything you need to know that no one is teaching you. In this easy to understand course, you'll learn what anxiety really is, the unexpected causes of anxiety, signs and symptoms of anxiety, different types of anxiety and anxiety disorders, how to get long-lasting relief from your anxiety. It's not temporary, but how to feel that way forever. You'll learn the right tools for anxiety and get real examples of those tools so that you can start practicing them today. And of course, you'll learn how to get to the root of your anxiety to heal for good. Anxiety is complex enough, not to mention the overwhelm of information, so make it simple. This course is going to break it all down for you. And let me tell you about what you get inside of Anxiety 101. You get a 93-page workbook chock full of anxiety tips and secrets, including 3 anxiety truths you have to know. The anxiety symptoms checklist. You can literally go through and check your different symptoms based on the 3 different categories and figure out how you're actually feeling. Inside Anxiety 101, you also get the 5 steps for long-lasting anxiety relief that no one is teaching you. This is a big chunk of Anxiety 101 because it's super important that you understand these 5 steps. You also get a list of anxiety triggers so that you can figure out what's triggering your anxiety. You get the 4 types of anxiety tools that are right for anxiety, that are best for anxiety. And again, of course, I'm all about examples of what to do so that you can put them in place today and start feeling less anxious immediately. And I'll also say the workbook is not all about just me teaching. It is very much that, but it's also about you applying to your life. Inside of the workbook, you get journaling prompts and pages so that you can process everything that you're thinking. Doing the work, taking action, this is what leads to breakthroughs. And I can promise you this workbook is going to give you more mindset shifts and truth bombs than you're ready for. Besides a huge workbook, you also get audio recordings of all the lessons so that you can listen anywhere, anytime, when you're driving, when you're doing laundry, or maybe when you want to actually sit down and do the work. This will be just like me and you chatting here on the podcast, but imagine taking it up a couple notches because you'll actually be taking action and doing the thing. And then last but definitely not least, inside of Anxiety 101, you get 2 awesome bonuses that you can't get anywhere else. Literally, they're not available anywhere else. My friend, it is time to stop overcomplicating anxiety, okay? Learn how simple it can be to actually feel less anxious. Join Anxiety 101 and get started today so that you can feel less anxious tomorrow. I'll see you there. Now that you know what Anxiety 101 is all about, let's get into talking about anxiety in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that helps you take action, not feeling overwhelmed, not feeling stuck, but starting to feel better, right? That's my goal here. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details that are inside of Anxiety 101 because Anxiety 101 is over 2 hours of straight content, helpful tips and tools, and everything you need to know. I want to keep today's episode short and sweet. Again, I'm not about the overwhelm. And that's why I break down Anxiety 101 into small, doable chunks so that you can listen and pause and try it for yourself. Okay. So today we're going to talk about what anxiety really is, the 7 unexpected causes of anxiety, and the signs and symptoms of anxiety. All right, let's start at the top. What is anxiety? Like, really, what is it? Now, I have a separate episode here, episode 14, where I talk about what anxiety really is in 3 different ways. And I go into this in more detail inside of Anxiety 101. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you're welcome to listen to that too. But let's really break down some of the basic, boring definitions of anxiety and talk about what it actually means for us, real people. Anxiety can be a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease. So think about that. How much of your day are you going about feeling really worried, just having all these worried thoughts, feeling nervous, or just feeling uneasy, just feeling like something doesn't feel good, something doesn't feel right, that kind of crawl out of your skin feeling. For me, that was 24/7 before. I felt like that all the time. And you're feeling this way because of something in your mind that's been created. So some type of imminent event. Maybe it's real, maybe it's something you've created in your head, totally imagined, or it could be something that's going on in your life that has an uncertain outcome, something that you're not quite sure of. I've talked about this before, but I am like a planner extraordinaire. So I don't like surprises. I want to know what's going to happen and I'm going to plan everything out. But that really comes from that need for control. So when things feel uncertain, that just throws me off my rocker, or it used to, I should say. Now I'm really becoming BFFs with uncertainty, knowing that like the only thing we can guarantee in life is that things will happen outside of our plan. All right, so that was the first definition we'll talk about. The second definition I found that I loved with anxiety is a state of apprehension. So feeling apprehensive, feeling like unsure, that comes from anticipating something that we think might be dangerous, threatening, or unpleasant. So let's talk about that, breaking that down again. Anticipating something. How much of anxiety keeps us stuck in the future? We're anticipating something's going to happen. We're kind of creating that scenario in our head, oftentimes the worst case scenario. And again, going back to that part about it being dangerous, threatening, or unpleasant. We've created ways of thinking in our head that everything is dangerous, threatening, or unpleasant. And again, I talk about this more inside of Anxiety 101 and how our brain, an anxious brain, has become wired that way and what to do to rewire it and how that is totally possible, my friend. And then our last definition here, what is anxiety? It's anticipation of a future worry or concern. Again, future thinking, stuck in the future and anticipating that. So here we see lots of feelings of nervousness, a lot of anticipation, a lot of creating things in our head that haven't happened yet. And then that uneasy feeling, that kind of like sick to your stomach kind of feeling, or just on edge and nervous. So that's how anxiety is defined. But I'm like an out of the box thinker. So with those definitions, I also want to give you 3 anxiety truths that you have to know, because when I read basic boring definitions, I just feel like really stuck in that a lot of times. And I never want that for you. So inside of Anxiety 101, I share with you those 3 anxiety truths you need to know and the 3 ways to think about anxiety in detail. Again, these are super visual ways to imagine anxiety so that it doesn't feel so scary. It doesn't feel misunderstood. It actually is like, yeah, that makes sense. That is what anxiety feels like. And that does really apply to my life and the way I think. And not so bad, right? Like I can work with that. Again, that's the goal inside of Anxiety 101 and really with everything I do. I want you to feel like, oh, that's doable. Because when we're overwhelmed or when we're confused, we take no action. We do nothing. All right, so that is all about what anxiety really is. Now let's talk about the 7 unexpected causes of anxiety. Now, again, I'm not going to go into all 7 because that would take a long time, but we're going to talk about number 1, the biggest one, the probably most controversial one, and why you're not stuck with this one forever. Now, experts don't fully understand what causes anxiety, but they do think that anxiety can occur based on different factors that we have going on in our lives. And the first one, and again, probably the most controversial, is genetics. And the reason why I say it's controversial is because a lot of the messaging that we hear out there is you're born this way, you'll be like this forever. Anxiety is because you have a chemical imbalance in your brain. Gosh, I remember hearing that in grad school. And thankfully, I had a professor that was like, do not subscribe to that. That's actually not true. That was a message created by Big Pharma to make us buy meds to help, quote, balance our brain chemicals. Now, again, I'm not a med shamer. I know plenty of people that are on medicine and it really helps them feel better. And with that said, I also know a lot of people who have tried medicine and it just wasn't their jam. That was me. The side effects didn't feel like they were worth it. And then I was like, there's got to be something else I can do. I think it's just that critical thinker part of me too that goes, what if we tried this instead? Part of what we hear and why we think that genetics cause anxiety is because a lot of people with a family history of anxiety disorders or other mental health conditions might develop anxiety. And that makes sense, right? You might think, oh, that connection is because of that genetic predisposition. But your genetics are not written in stone. I am so passionate about talking about this. I share about this in Module 5 of Anxiety 101 because there is so much scientific evidence that shows you're not stuck with your genetics. I've seen this time and time again. And more than that, I've lived this. I have lived this from my personal experience. I lived over 30 years of my life feeling super anxious. And then with some simple changes, which are things that I teach you all inside of Anxiety 101, with these changes, I started to notice a difference in my life. So I know for a fact that you are not stuck with your genetics. Now, the fancy scientific word for this is called epigenetics. And epigenetics is a study of how your behaviors and your environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. So what this means is even if you have those genetic traits, even if your genes say you should be anxious, you have the power to change that based on your choices right now and today, your behaviors, what you surround yourself with. So the cool news, hear me when I say this, the traits that should be, quote, should be expressed through your genetic code aren't always expressed based on how you choose to live. Here's another way to understand this. Epigenetics says that epigenetic changes are reversible. So genetic changes are not, right? Genetic changes are a change to your DNA. But epigenetic changes can change how your body reads that DNA sequence. I'm not a sciencey girl. I don't really care to get into it. Here's what I know. Even if anxiety is in your DNA sequence, you can change it. You don't have to live with that anxiety forever. Best news ever. Okay. Inside of Anxiety 101, we talk about the other 6 unexpected causes of anxiety and scientific evidence that shows that you're never stuck feeling anxious forever. You can always change. You are not too far gone. I hear that all the time. I'm too messed up. I'm too far gone. You're not. There's so much hope that you can feel free from your anxiety. Okay. So we talked about what anxiety really is. We've talked about the unexpected causes of anxiety. And now we're going to talk about the signs and symptoms of anxiety. Anxiety can feel different person to person. My feelings of anxiety might be different than yours. You might feel just that uneasiness we talked about, just feeling really worried all the time, kind of not really sure what you're worried about. You might even feel shaking in your hands. You might feel some heaviness on your chest, you just have that brick that you're carrying around, you can't get that deep breath. You may notice that you feel some tightness in your neck and your shoulders. I used to joke, and even my chiropractor would say this, that my shoulders were always up at my ears because I was just tense all the time. Your heart might race, your stomach might feel really upset, and you may find that you avoid like a pro. You avoid anything that could cause you more anxiety. You avoid going in public. You avoid making that phone call, whatever it is, you avoid. Now, we talk in detail about how all these physical symptoms that you feel of anxiety are actually your body's way of preparing you for that survival response. So your body is trying to do what it needs to do to protect you and keep you alive. And that's why you feel all those physical symptoms of anxiety. Here's what I want you to hear. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. Okay. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not messed up. These are the effects of anxiety. Okay. There's so much hope for you, my friend. Now, with that being said, I want you to get to an understanding of what anxiety symptoms you feel in your body so that you can notice when you're feeling that way. Inside of Anxiety 101, we talk about the 3 categories of anxiety symptoms, and I give you a huge checklist so that you can go through and pinpoint your exact symptoms. We also talk all about anxiety triggers. I give you a list of those and some space for you to brainstorm your anxiety triggers. I feel like I am just touching the tip of the iceberg today in this episode. Again, the whole point is it's not overwhelming, that you leave feeling like, I could do this. Know that inside of the course, we cover so much more detail, and I share really practical tips that you need to know to take that action today. You'll learn about different types of anxiety, like regular anxiety versus an anxiety disorder versus high functioning anxiety. You'll learn those really important 5 steps to get long-lasting relief from anxiety. Again, I promise you, these are not your basic tips like meditate every day or just think positively. No, you can do a quick Google search to find those tips. Those are not the ones that I'm sharing with you. As somebody who struggled for over 30 years, who read those tips and knows that those tips don't help in getting rid of your anxiety long-term, I would never give you that. Everything I share with you are expert-based tips from mental health professionals and from my own experience. This module that teaches you those 5 steps for long-lasting anxiety relief is packed with information. It's the biggest one inside of Anxiety 101, and I broke it down into 7 lessons with everything you need to know. You'll also learn the right tools for anxiety, the 4 types of anxiety tools that I teach to my clients. You get some examples of those inside of Anxiety 101. And last, but definitely not least, I have to talk about how to get to the root of your anxiety, because it wouldn't be me without it. Okay, I teach you how to get to the root of your anxiety, what that actually means, how we do that, and how that is the key to healing your anxiety for good. Anxiety 101 is not just like a learn from me. Again, it's how do you apply this to your life? So you get those journaling pages and prompts and checklists, so many resources so that you can process everything and how it applies to you. I cannot wait to see how your life changes with this course. So hop in and join me, and then send me a message so I can hear from you, okay? I hope you enjoyed today's episode, where we talked all about anxiety in a way that makes sense to you. I am so grateful you're here, and I will see you inside of Anxiety 101 or in our next episode. See you later, friend. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You don't know how much it means to me. If you'd like more behind the scenes content, inspiration, and daily reminders that encourage and uplift you, follow me on Instagram at HeyErinKimbrel and send me a DM to say hey. If any of the episodes have been super helpful for you, please consider leaving me a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. It helps me so incredibly much, and it allows the podcast to be seen by other people who need it. If you want to learn more from me, head to erinkimbrel.com. That's where you'll find all my free resources, read the podcast show notes, and learn more information about my online coaching and breathwork programs that help you create the life you want. If you want to keep the conversation going from today's episode, join us in our exclusive podcast Facebook community, Empowered and Free Help for High Functioning Anxiety. I'm here for you, and I'm always cheering you on. I'll see you next time. I'm Erin Kimbrel, and this is the Empowered and Free podcast.